guests that might be jumping on this live session here. Hope everyone is doing well and hopefully excited about our conversation today that I started to talk about. It's a topic that I would argue every trainer or every fitness professional in the industry has thought about at least at some point in their careers. We're going to talk about what it takes to run a successful fitness facility. So, like I said, joining me to offer all of the insight here when it comes to this conversation are Trotter and Chris Stevenson, who co-authored their new book, Fitness Facility Management. So I have obviously had a chance to kind of look through this. Excellent information. I know I have my copy here for Human Kinetics, but I'm getting my own copy as well because that's how much I really enjoy it. So typically I will give kind of a bio of the people that I'm talking to, but it might be more interesting for the listeners if they could hear it directly from you. So if you could kind of give your perspective of your background, your education, certifications, and really just kind of your journey in getting to this point.
Go ahead, Stephen.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you all for joining us today. I actually kind of got my start in this industry all the way back in high school. I grew up a very overweight and obese kid. And when I turned 16, I got my driver's license. And the first place that I went to was the Gold's Gym in my hometown and signed up for a 2-year membership. And I really went from one extreme to another and had to find what my kind of spot was. And that's important to me because as I went to college, first generation college student, I thought I wanted to go to pharmacy school, realized very quickly that's not for me. And I was not for pharmacy school, and really had the opportunity to start teaching as a fitness instructor in my last year of high school, senior year of high school before I went to college. And so my background actually kind of started in collegiate recreation and always worked part-time in the health club space. But for the last, since for the last 21 years, I've been in the collegiate recreation space. So teaching personal training, managing fitness facilities, had the opportunity to do a couple large scale 100,000 plus facility expansions and builds. So, and then primarily my consulting work is with college recreation and military wellness recreation, MWR. So undergrad's in exercise phys, my master's is in health promotion, and I've also been a faculty member for the last, if I can do math, since 2008, I've taught in the classroom, and actually for the last 8 years have taught a fitness facility management course. So it kind of lined up perfectly when the opportunity presented itself. So I'm a fitness director, a wellness director, a consultant, and a professor, kind of all wrapped up in one. So yes, I have 3 jobs.
Well, very extensive knowledge and background too. Definitely helpful in this, obviously, too. So, all right, you can go ahead too.
So I grew up an athlete, played many sports, but I started to excel in competitive martial arts. So I grew up in Ohio and was a high-level martial arts competitor, ended up running a studio at a young age and also coaching other competitors. So all throughout college, I got my degree in business, was a pretty serious experience. So I was done being serious and I thought I'm going to go somewhere warm for a few years and just do nothing of importance but have fun. So I moved to Los Angeles right after college. And while I was there, I was still training in martial arts and working out just to stay in shape, and met a few guys who were working in the stunt industry. So ironically, they sort of brought me under their wing and I ended up doing stunts on different movies, television shows, and most notably the live touring show for the kids show Power Rangers. So for 15 years did stunt show for the Power Rangers. But as a stunt guy, you get beat. Well, first of all, you got to be in shape. So my interest in fitness stayed there because not only do you have to be lean to do stunts, but you also had to, be agile and strong and be able to recover. So in doing that, I started to realize quickly that you take a beating and I've got to find some other way to, some other career path to explore. So being into health and fitness, I ended up becoming a personal trainer and group exercise instructor and fell in love with the industry. So from there, worked at a couple different gyms, opened up my own personal training studio, and from there opened up my own full service health club that we owned and operated for years. We won some awards. And because of some of that success, you start to have opportunities to speak, present, write, and then consult. People are like, hey, you're doing okay. Can you help us? And you're sort of like, sure. So did that for about 20 years, primarily owning and operating, and then moved into full-time consulting similar to Steven. And, so again, presenting, speaking at events, doing workshops and trainings, and then doing specialized projects, strategic advising for different organizations in fitness, parks and recs, indoor rock climbing, and industries like that. And then just how Stephen and I kind of got to know each other on the circuit, speaking and presenting events, hearing each other's sessions. And in the back of our minds, where I was like, how do we work together at some point? And then Human Kinetics approached us, and this became the perfect opportunity for us to partner on this amazing experience.
That's all very interesting. I mean, it sounds like both of you came from, somewhat different backgrounds, or at least got your start in different backgrounds, but kind of like merged together. And now you're kind of doing the same thing. But I'm guessing that's probably helped, having those slightly different backgrounds to kind of give a little more knowledge there.
Yeah, I think that's why the book is so well-rounded, right? Because sometimes you'll see stuff, and here's how you do it in the campus space. Here's how you do it in commercial fitness. And I think between both of our diverse backgrounds, we were able to provide angles on sort of almost every possible potential model of fitness facility there is.
Yeah, really, this, from the person who teaches this class too, it's been a struggle to find a book that actually encompasses everything. So this is really the first time that the book has been written where it's got campus rec, community rec, commercial rec, and everything kind of tied into it.
And I think that this book is really laid out perfectly, almost in, I guess, if you're looking to run your own facility, kind of sequential order. You go into defining your organizational mission, your values or vision, identifying your target market, making business plans, budgeting, hiring, so much information. It's all inclusive. But I think some people might want to jump right into, I guess, more of the fun stuff. But I'm interested to hear from you guys kind of the importance of that first one in defining your mission, your vision, and your values, and how that can really set you up for success later on.
Yeah, I think that, Chris and I both have a lot of very similar mindsets, and the readings that we do, our kind of practices. And really for me, and I think Chris as well, it's really, you have to start with why, because otherwise you're going to figure out at some point, and Simon Sinek, there's so many books out there that really focus on getting that mission right first. And really for us, and at least my point of view, is really you have to understand why you're doing something, because when it comes to budget cuts or when it comes to making those hard decisions, those need to be values based. And if you don't have that clear, concrete set of values, then your decisions that are going to affect your employees, your independent contractors, your members, your guests, and your stakeholders are going to be inconsistently applied, inconsistently done, and it's really going to become a mess. So, for us, when we're thinking about this, you have to start with that why, because everything else has to follow that why.
Yeah, and to emphasize what Stephen was saying about decision making, when your mission, your vision, your values, that guides your decision making, which actually makes things easier. And far too often what we've both seen is it becomes sort of a fill in the blank exercise so we can get to the real stuff, right? Like marketing and operations and all that. But if you take that aspect seriously, you are setting yourself up for long-term success.
I'm guessing that both of you have seen and maybe been part of it, at least as far as consulting, so many different situations. Now, I'm not asking you to call out anyone specifically, but like what are some of those examples of maybe how some people have failed by not getting started in the right area?
Chris, you want to start?
This one? No, I think what happens is, when you go through that fundamental process of mission, vision, values, and creating those in a meaningful way, that's sort of working from the inside out, where some people see fitness as this, I can make a lot of money if I just try to do it this way. And that never works, right? So that's where we see the failure is people without the real reason why, they're just not as invested in what our industry provides for people. They see it as more of you making money. And by the way, if that's your goal, buy a Subway franchise, right? Like just buy a plug and play franchise if that's your goal. Fitness is one of those industries that's so purpose driven, and we interact with so many members that it has to start that way. So we do see a lot of people that sort of work from the outside in. I want to open a gym. Here's how I want to operate it. And they never have that why. And that's why they don't have the long-term sustainable success.
Absolutely. And I'll add to that, especially in the college and higher education space, what we're seeing across the industry is more and more of your traditional, what we would call our health promotion departments, are merging with the recreation departments. They're being cohabitated in the same rec centers. Even our alcohol and drug recovery and prevention efforts are kind of coming into that. So it's really becoming this comprehensive whole person care approach. And so as these departments start to merge with the college rec centers, I do a lot of work as colleges are merging those departments where you have to pause and reset those mission, vision, and values, because oftentimes you've got the rec centers with, I mean, some of these larger university rec centers have 60, 70, 80 full-time employees with large multi-million dollar budgets. And if you bring in, you know, a smaller department, or even a department that is not managing 400,000 square feet of fitness space, you know, you can get gobbled up very quickly. And so it's very important, as we, even in the club space, as there's mergers and acquisitions, it's important to take that pause so that the new people joining the organization, it doesn't seem like an acquisition, and it truly seems more like a merging of two entities to create something larger, better, that has a new mission, vision, values.
You know, and by the way, Stephen, and just listening to what you're saying too is, you know, right now hiring and retaining talent is so challenging, right? If you can work in a fitness center, or you could go work for a fast food restaurant, or you could work anywhere. So when you have that really well-defined mission, vision, values, and a purpose behind what you're doing, you're going to attract and keep talent, because they know that what they're doing at your facility is actually changing lives, making a difference. So it's actually a retention tool for team members, not for just attracting members in general.
And I'm glad that both of you mentioned that, because that was actually the next point that I wanted to get to. Was, which I'm sure, I mean, you guys have done this for years, so you already know. But yeah, just that idea of maybe not, if you're you know, an individual business owner, maybe you can't hire employees, but like you guys are mentioning, especially as you grow, and maybe for those larger fitness facilities, that's so important. It seems like, I mean, I've worked at gyms and been parts of teams where you can kind of tell, like, that has to be I guess I'm guessing one of the toughest parts for managers to do is being able to find that good talent, and once they find that, be able to retain them and keep them on staff. So I guess what are some tips that you can give some people there, or maybe just some stories about, you know, being able to do that successfully?
I think for one, you know, similar, Chris and I, as mentioned earlier, we have a lot of similarities, and that, again, that's that passion for employee engagement, employee well-being. But for me, it's really, the tip is, just as you would start or pause and develop your member journey for your members, you have to develop that employee journey. I'm a Gallup certified strengths coach, so I do a lot of strengths-based leadership and strengths organizational development. But you really have to define that employee journey just as you would that member journey. And it truly is that 7-step process. And when we started putting the book together, you know, when we were having conversations of what the role of a fitness facility manager is, a GM, fitness director, whatever it is, but we were noticing in that piece that most of the literature out there neglects the talent offboarding, which is so important, because, you know, people leave for various reasons, just not only bad ones. And so that was important for us to dedicate an entire chapter to that offboarding piece, because of the 7 steps of that employee life cycle, it's often neglected.
Yeah, no, I agree. And when you talk about the employee journey, the power shifted a little bit. In the old days, people used to fight over jobs, and now it seems like employers, especially in the fitness space, are fighting over people. So I do see sometimes, especially in the consulting space, a disconnect between leadership and talent, where leaders are driven and they're type A and they mean well, but they don't understand, what do you mean I have to make an application process easier? What do you mean I have to spend more time with appreciation and recognition for employees? I'm just driven. I just go. And I said, and that's great. And I'm glad you are that way. But unfortunately, your staff, for the most part, is not. So when you focus on that employee journey, realizing that, man, you are competing not only with other fitness centers, but with fast food restaurants and chains and stores, and you're competing with everybody for employees now. So when you can provide the best employee journey, you're more likely to attract and then retain those people. And then back to what you started with the mission, vision, values, again, reinforcing with all of your team members the purpose of what they do. Because when they believe in the purpose, they understand this isn't just a job. This is a mission that we're on, right? And that's a better mission than flipping burgers, or, you know, making fries, or selling T-shirts somewhere. So that purpose is an important part of it as well.
And you mentioned that employee journey, and something that came to mind when I was thinking about this and kind of reading through this is that whole scenario, and we've seen the meme or the cartoon of, you know, the two managers maybe talking to each other and kind of saying, what if we invest in our employees and they leave? And the other one says, what if we don't and they stay? So, like, how can you stress, like, how important that actually is? Because I think I've seen some managers or some businesses kind of afraid of that aspect. Like, they get good employees, or employees that they think are good, and they don't want them to leave for whatever reason. But it's almost like those people become stagnant in their careers because they're not progressing.
Well, one thing I think in that regard is, as a fitness facility, your equipment needs to work, your classes need to be good, your personal training department needs to be good, right? All those things need to be effective, or people won't come to your facility.
Mhm.
But beyond that, and Stephen and I have talked about this a lot, is listen, everybody has classes, everybody's got dumbbells, everybody's got treadmills. So it reinforcing with your staff, listen, the difference is you, right? Because people are looking for a memorable, great experience, and the difference really is you and the way you treat people and the way you do all those things. So whether or not they leave, right, it doesn't matter. If they're not there providing a great experience, interacting with members, warm welcomes, fond farewells,
Mhm.
owning questions, all those great customer service aspects, you're going to lose members. So you have to provide that, because if you don't, you just let people coast, you're not going to create a great member experience, and your retention is going to be terrible. You're not going to get new members, new referrals, right? But in the same part, employees love when they develop and improve. So when you're teaching them those skills, those communication skills, those soft skills that they don't learn at other places, that helps with retention as well. Because when employees feel like they're growing and they feel like they're better for having worked there, they're more likely to stay and they're more likely to give it their all.
Not to mention that really helps your brand grow, because you become known as a legacy, really team member cultivator. And especially, in the collegiate rec world, it is, I mean, turnover is high because it's naturally high. When we're
Right.
thinking about running a college rec center, you may have anywhere from 5 to 85 full-time employees, but the bulk of your employees are student employees who are your personal trainers, and they're just certified just like everyone else is. But you may have anywhere from 50 student employees to 850 student employees, and they're graduating every year.
Yeah.
And so, you have to, training and development has to be one of your number one priorities. And I mean, really, that's the magic of what happens in the college rec space and the fitness space on college campuses, because we build these powerhouses of universities where, if, I get calls all the time from, whether it's YMCA, clubs, NWR, community rec, or so forth, and they're like, we know if we see that name on their resume or CV, we know their quality, because you have to invest in your team members, because not only do you need them to deliver that great experience, your part of the education experience is to prepare students to go on and change the world and lead the world. And so you've got to put quality graduates out into employers. Otherwise, it's going to diminish your own program. People don't want to work for you, because now you have this tarnished brand that if they want to stay in the fitness space full time, people aren't going to hire them if they see that university on their resume.
And what we've seen too is, like with our clubs we worked with, if you are the type of facility that does invest in developing these team members and making sure they grow, develop, and they're really good at what they do, you're probably also the organization that focuses on retaining them by doing all the stuff necessary for that. And then there's the vice versa. The people that don't train them, they don't generally put in the retention systems either. So, the successful facilities, to Stephen's point, we even in commercial clubs, they're not necessarily the same timeline, but you have a lot of college kids that are working your frontline departments or train while they're in college. So, understanding that here's the general lifespan and being prepared to rehire at those times, but, train them.
I think all of us know here the importance of, especially if you're a trainer, like learning the science behind everything that you're doing. But have you kind of seen a shift in maybe those two sides equaling out, and more of an emphasis going to the communication and customer relations and that type of thing? Or is that not
Definitely.
equal yet?
Yeah, I think it for most of the scenarios, whether it's with clients or places that I'm working, it really depends on the member, the client, their motivator, and you've kind of got to have it all. But as we're seeing generational shifts in the workforce, it's definitely, you have to understand the generational shift, how they communicate, and think about, from that communication standpoint, is you have to train your team to communicate to someone how they want to be communicated to. And people don't talk on the phone that much anymore. They would much rather communicate through the facility app, the training platform, text, or whatever it is. So it's both. It's not a either or. It's really a both and, where you have to have that base camp knowledge, what we would say. But once you kind of get, that's like before you pass go and collect $200, it's like you've got to have that base knowledge, but then that communication, that experience that you're delivering is really what sets you apart from everyone else.
Yep.
Okay.
Agreed.
All right, very good. This is all really good conversation here, but I also want to get to so many other aspects of the book, and you do get into more of the brick and mortar facility and getting that side going. Now, I know that we won't do it justice in the time that we have here, but what are some of the most important areas that you might remind people to focus on when it comes to actually, getting that brick and mortar facility going, getting the setup of the building and everything exactly right to the way you want it?
Yeah, I'll start with that one. And I think that's like for me, it's like really thinking about, and we had a lot of conversation around what the role of the manager is and how much do they need to know. And it depends on what setting that you're working in. Depending on what setting and even within that market, depending on what actual site you're in, you may have to know more of the construction piece than others. But for really, when you've got the lifespan of brick and mortar facilities, you've got to build them so that they can change over time. Because with some of these larger facilities, I mean, some of these campuses have 200, 300,000 square foot fitness facilities, and you don't get that money every 5 years to remodel it. So you have to build it so that so it can change with the time. And for me, I think one of the tips is having convertible spaces.
Okay.
One example is I found, from my experience, is really developing what I like to call personal movement experiences, where you can take office space, for example, or 120 square foot, and turn it into something where you have a Peloton, you have some sort of mirror device, you have a small rack of dumbbells, TRX, something like that. So as an individual, I can come in and get that at-home experience in club. And so having those spaces, and that's almost like that step and that crumb, we're dropping the breadcrumbs to get them to move from that space into the large fitness studio, into the weight room and so forth. But for me, it's convertible spaces, and to have those spaces where you can graduate people throughout the facility.
And I think in conjunction with that too, really starting to have an idea of who your target market's going to be ahead of time, because that's going to really influence the way you design a facility to cater to those people, because different types of users are going to have different type of expectations with the space. So you do have to have sort of a base understanding of who you're going to serve with this facility. And then Stephen mentioned adaptability and being able to change. And to your point, especially in the private sector, in the public sector, you don't get money every week and change things. So you really have to have that forward thinking to know, like, yes, there are things we can modify and change over time, but what are these things that we can't mess up right now? And you really got to get those right out of the gate, because it's going to be a long time before you can improve those. And I think, we're working on a big project in Sacramento right now for it's a 60,000 square foot rec center that's in the build out phase. And the one thing I keep reinforcing with the client is be flexible. Because you're going to open thinking this is going to be laid out perfectly, and then you're going to realize, oh no, we need to move the cardio equipment over this way a little bit. We need to move the dumbbell. So you do as much as, and it's funny, and Steve and I are both planners, and we like to plan and organize, and this is how it goes. But we also know that sometimes things don't go quite as planned, or you realize, wow, we've got a lot more, in the rec center, a lot more teens than we thought. So we've got to expand this area a little bit. So always going in with that open mindset, knowing as much as you plan, there are going to be unexpected things, or you're like, wow. When we opened up our club prior to opening, we didn't release the group exercise schedule because we didn't want too many people giving us advice and all those thoughts. So we're like, we're not going to announce that till we open. But I came from a martial arts background, so of course there's going to be a lot of cardio kickboxing type classes, and we didn't offer any yoga. As we were signing people up in the pre-sale, we had so many people going, "You're going to have yoga, right?" And we're like, well, we're going to develop a diverse schedule, until we realized we had so many people asking for yoga that yoga became one of our most prevalent classes on our schedule.
Oh, wow.
So again, karate guy, old meathead karate guy had yoga. What's that? And sure enough, it became one of our biggest, formats that we offered. So again, plan, be prepared, think about the future, design for the future, but understand there are going to be things that you're going to need to change as soon as you open and realize, well, that's different than we expected.
And it sounds like I'm guessing most people that have the personality to want to run a fitness facility or open their own business are probably type A and want to, everything to be exactly how they want it. But you're making the point here that you need to be flexible and adaptable to pretty much everything. And that might not go the way that you wanted to.
Yes. And by the way, to your point, just kind of a random thing, but I remember there would be times at the gym and you play music, right? And your group exercise class, you play music in the gym in general. You play for your demographic that you serve. So there would be times, our personal training staff would be like, oh, this song again. Oh, this kind of music. We're like, listen, we love you and we want you to have a great, employee experience. But the music is designed to serve the members. So sometimes, to your point with the type A, like, my background in working out, I was a certified strength and conditioning specialist, right? So in my mind, if I designed a perfect gym, it would have a ton of racks and it would have a ton of bumper plates, right? But I knew that wasn't the demographic we were going to serve. So we had one little, platform kind of hidden in the corner because it was for that very small user base. And then the rest was designed for 40 to 60-year-old, predominantly female and slightly male users, right? So you got to, as the fitness enthusiast who loves what you love, you got to realize who you're serving and design it on them, not based on what you love.
Yep. And that's funny that you mentioned that, because I never in my life thought that I would ever listen to so much One Direction or Jonas Brothers. But that's what my athletes want to listen to. A lot of female athletes, that's what they wanted to listen to. So I totally get your point there. I guess moving along, there's something that we have to talk about. Obviously, everyone knows that we recently went through a pandemic, and that affected a lot of businesses across the board. But I mean, I can say the gym that I work out of specifically, I'm in Central Illinois, and I think we closed down in 2020. It was like March 16th. We didn't open up again until June 1st, where, I mean, I was allowed to do like private sessions, but then for my bigger athlete sessions, we had to go out to the parking lot. So just with all of that in mind, how have you seen maybe the fitness industry change because of that? Are there changes that extended from everything that we had to do during then, or have people's mindset shifted because of that?
For one, I would say it was, especially for the in North Carolina, that's where I'm from, and I spent most of my life in North Carolina. When it came to the rolling openings, we were one of the last states that were able to open health clubs and spaces. So we were probably one of the states that were closed the longest. And so honestly, for us, we took it as an opportunity to reset the expectation. And especially in the college rec setting, you had 2 years of really students who were online and they were not in person. So this legacy of what they had been taught to expect when they get to college and what that college rec and fitness experience was going to be like could change. And really it was an opportunity for us, because as we're facing budget crisis and things like that and having to make decisions around financing, we took it as an opportunity to reimagine what is this experience that we want to take forward, and what do our students, our members, our faculty and staff, and our guests want to take forward. So really for us, it was an opportunity to hit the reset button, to rethink how we did things, sunset some of the things that we used to do, reimagine some of the other things, and really took it as an opportunity to innovate. For us, we had a lot of virtual offerings, apps, and so forth anyway, because one of the facilities that I manage is a multi-site location where we have multiple sites. And so in that multi-site location, from the organizational standpoint, is you have to be able to be work flexible and member flexible, because you're covering an area. It's the same way if like in a regional health club setting. So for us, I would say it was the opportunity to hit the reset button, sunset some of the decisions some of the programs and services we were offering, and reimagining what that was going to look like moving forward, and taking our member and guest input and and deciding what that looks like going forward.
Yeah, and I think, two of the biggest things that are pretty obvious with the pandemic was more online stuff and more outdoor stuff, right? And not that those didn't exist prior, but all of a sudden those were your only choices in a lot of places. California was similar, Stephen, that we were closed for almost 2 years, right? So those were the only two options. But what was really cool about it was, if I were to talk to you ahead of, pre-pandemic and said, hey, do you want to train online, via Zoom? You'd have been like, no, weirdo, that's weird. Or how about people that had happy hours online? If I would have been like, hey, you want to get on the Zoom, have a couple cocktails? You'd have been like, no, and you should seek help immediately because you obviously have an issue. But it normalized it, right? So it normalized that. It normalized, outdoor people have always run and biked and hiked, but it normalized training outdoors. So I think those are two good things, and they're not replacing the indoor experience. People, especially in California, they couldn't wait to get back into their facilities, but now they had these other options. So I think facilities now figuring out who they serve, what their interests are, and does it make sense to keep outdoors? Because in a lot of spaces it does. In some spaces it doesn't. Does it make sense to keep online? Right? In some it does, in some it doesn't. But I will tell you, if you do outdoor, if you are a brick and mortar and you're going to do outdoor or you're going to online, do it well. What doesn't work is like, hey, here's a boot camp in our parking lot. Like in this rec center in Sacramento, we're doing a really well-designed outdoor area. We even, with as part of the build up, figure out where the sun hits at certain times of days to make sure it was okay to be out there with cool, a beaver fit rig outside. So it's an outdoor training experience. It's not, I'm working out outdoors, right? Same thing with online. Do it. If you're going to do it well, but also figure out, is the demographic I'm going to serve, will they utilize it? Will they appreciate it? Will they love it? And if so, then you do it, but do it right.
I think all that's intriguing to me, because even after we were able to train everyone back inside, I still had athletes. I remember for myself, this is more like, junior high school age athletes. Even though we could be inside the facility full time, they actually wanted to go back outside because they actually enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I don't know, being here in the Midwest, I'm kind of envious of some of the warmer climate areas where I would actually prefer to have an indoor-outdoor option, because I think, like, I guess to your point, it kind of changes the whole experience and gives you something else to work with, and you can probably be more creative with it that way.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, so I know we have been talking for a little bit. This has been really good insight. I know I've learned a lot from it. I'm guessing everyone else that has listened to it has as well. But I want to thank you so much for your time and talking to us about this. I know, like I said at the beginning, this is a topic that I know is really relevant for everyone working in the fitness industry. Everyone can get so much insight from it. If you haven't got your copy yet and you're listening to this, I'm serious, pick up your copy. You can get it on our website now, us.humankinetics.com. Obviously, I prefer that you go there. It's available on Amazon and other places as well. But you will get so much insight from it. Everything that we talked about today and so much more. We talked about, establishing your mission, your vision, your values, identifying your target market, business operations. Like we just talked about, setting up your fitness facility, marketing, business strategy. So much information contained in here. I was actually impressed with how much depth it actually goes into. So anyone listening, definitely take advantage of this. Stephen and Chris, again, thank you so much for your time. I will give you guys the last word here, though, so you can kind of wrap it up and maybe tell everyone how they can follow you and keep up with the work you're doing.
So I just have to say that I have started and stopped writing a book probably a half a dozen to a dozen times throughout the years. So I have to tell you, I've always been the idea, like, this is all great stuff and I've got to do it. And I start, I stop. And it's, because it's a pretty challenging project. So when Stephen called me and said, hey, I got a project for us. And I said, tell me more. And he told me about it. I said, this is great. And I got to give kudos to Stephen. He's the most organized human being that I have ever, because to your point, with the depth of information and all of that, although I have a lot of the information, I'm like, I don't know how to structure this. And Steve's like, I got it. Project planned it out, so specific. It was excellent. So between that and the direction and support from Human Kinetics, it made what seemed to me an insurmountable project something that was very realistic, doable. And now to see the book actually come out is just, it's been so rewarding and amazing. And so thank you to both of you and the Human Kinetics team who've made this thing possible. And again, just sort of a last resort. I mean, this is basically your blueprint. Yep. So whether you're learning this in school or you're going to open your own studio, your own facility, any of that, or you currently own a facility and you realize I'm struggling in these certain areas, the book covers it. So it really is the A to Z on opening a center and running a center. So I would recommend it to anybody who takes this industry seriously and wants to be successful long-term.
Great.
Yeah, and I agree with everything that Chris said, and again, thanks to Chris for coming along this journey. I mean, this has been a fun and energetic project that we've been able to do and take our passions and our purpose and our knowledge and kind of put it together. And Human Kinetics has been fantastic to work with. And when we're thinking about like just taking this forward, as Chris said, like whether you're a student taking a class, at the higher education level, or you're already owning a facility, or you're interested in owning a facility, or you're in a community rec space, like definitely take a look at it and take the tidbits of it. We tried to write it in a practical way, so no matter what your level of knowledge is, there's take-home points and nuggets of information that you can input in really any type of industry, especially when it comes to the people management side of things. Some lasting words that I would say is like I came across this, and I've kind of dreamed up of this project for the last like 7 years and kept saying I wanted to do it, and the universe kind of had it in plan. So I saw this quote the other day. It was never compromise a dream, but be willing to compromise how that dream plays out. And I think that that's very, inspirational and also meaningful in all aspects of our life. So I appreciate this entire project. Chris and I will be, for those of you out there who will be attending Athletic Business next month, we'll be at the Athletic Business Show doing a pre-conference workshop on people management and building rockstar teams and doing some sessions down there. So we'll be there on site. And you can follow me online at Globetrotter Wellness or globetrotterwellness.com. And Chris?
Yeah, sorry, forgot about that. Oh, so important part. Chris
Sorry.
at tegfirm.com is my email. Please feel free to reach out. And then on all social handles, just search Chris Stevenson. On Instagram, it is at the Chris Stevenson, not because it was like cool, because Chris Stevenson was apparently taken. So at the Chris Stevenson on Instagram.
Nice. Well, good. Very good. Thank you again. It really is laid out perfectly for everyone else listening. It really does walk you through step by step and pretty much everything you need to know. So again, thank you so much for your time. It was a lot of fun talking about all this. Maybe we can do it again sometime.
Love that. Thank you so much for having us.